Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and today we're coming to you guys with a different type of video. It's not a keyboard, but it's from ATK. So we have to thank ATK for this. This is the Horizon IEM from ATK, and I'm actually really curious of this IEM. It's supposed to be for gaming, right? So it's supposed to be a wired gaming IEM or earphone for your ears to play games with. It's supposed to be like tuned specifically for listening to footsteps and hearing different things inside a game. So we're gonna have to really test it, of course, and then see what I think about it, and even listen to music with it, because at the end of the day, we do listen to music, we also play games, we do many things, and usually you don't have separate things for different stuff. You usually have one thing. So we're gonna have to really see, is this good or is this even worth it, and my thoughts on this compared to a lot of the different IEMs that I've tried so far. So let's go straight into the unboxing, but please make sure to like and subscribe. Now introducing the ATK Horizon. This is ATK's first ever gaming IEM, and honestly I'm kind of curious because it seems like ATK is really making a lot of different products. They're really kind of expanding out, and I was quite interested to see what this is going to be like. Now overall, the ATK Horizon packaging is quite nice. As you can see, like, they really tried to make this a premium feel, a premium product, and I can really feel that in terms of the unboxing experience and the whole packaging itself. Quite nice to see. Now, in general, when we open it up, we can really see here now what we're getting and what's going to be inside the box and what you receive with this. So first things first, as soon as we open it up, we have to actually slide it out. You're going to be able to see the actual IEMs on the top. Now, the first thing I noticed was that the actual IEM is made out of like an aluminum on the outside. So that was really nice to see. It actually kind of increased the whole premium feel of the IEM, and the housing itself with the resin, the nice aluminum in the backing, it does make it a little bit heavier. So we're gonna have to see how it fits inside the ear, but really, really nice. Now this is the DSP version, so we are getting a USB-C cable, which is going to have its own DAC built in, and from what I've heard, this also has its own program that you can use with it, so it's going to be interesting to see how that actually works out. But overall, gotta say that even the cable itself is actually pretty decent. It's quite nice to see that they did a nice job with a cable, because a lot of times companies really cheap out with that. Now another thing is there's a ton of different tips available inside, which is really cool. There is no foam tips though, which is kind of surprising. I thought that might be something they would have added in with this whole packaging, but unfortunately no foamed ones, but you do get a ton of different silicone tips, which is going to help, especially if you are someone who has maybe a very specific type of fitting. Then it's nice to have a bunch available to be able to try out and see what works for you, because at the end of the day, the most important thing about an IEM is going to be the seal. So you also get a travel case with it, which is quite nice to see. It is leather based. I think it might be fake leather, I'm not too sure, but overall not too bad. It's actually quite nice to have, because you want to have something to carry your IEMs in. Now you also get this extra extensive cable. You are able to purchase it on top of your IEMs. Luckily ATK sent it out to me, because the cables might be a little bit short if you have your PC under your desk, and that is how it is for me. So I actually needed this extension cable to be able to really use it and have no issues with the length of the cable, but it is quite long with it. So keep in mind, like when I tried it out, the cable was a little bit too long when you put it together, and then it was actually kind of on the ground and I was stepping on it a lot. But overall, we're putting in the tips. So the tips, when you put it on, is actually a little bit difficult. I found that it was a little bit too difficult to put in. You really have to kind of stretch it out and get it on there. So something that maybe keep in mind for yourselves. You aren't really going to break anything, just make sure you really get it in there, because it is a bit of a hassle to put together for this. And you can really see me struggle with it because it was quite difficult, but overall, the IEMs actually feel quite nice. I was very surprised with the overall look and the feel of this pair. This is my first impressions of the ATK Shark Horizon, and overall it's a very, very nice design. The outer shell is an aluminum, so it's actually feels quite premium. It doesn't feel as cheap as, say, some of like the more budget IEMs out there. It does have a little bit more heft to it, so it's going to feel a little bit heavy in the ears, and overall it feels quite nice. Now in terms of the fitment, so let me get close to you guys and give you the fitment test. So in terms of how it fits in my ear, it's actually quite nice. I would say that it feels pretty comfortable. The ear tips, the actual like stock ear tips that I'm using, is not bad. It has a decent seal to it, and I actually feel pretty comfortable using it. The over ear as well, so the cable go all the way around. This specific portion, I'd say they did a really great job. Now, is it 100% seal with the stock tips that I'm using. Not 100%, but it's still pretty decent. I would say compared to say some of the other IEMs I have, that it's like the Dita Project M, the Sennheiser IE200s, which I actually use the Dunu SS tips on those. Those ones obviously are gonna fit a lot better and snug. This one has a little bit of spacing that I can kind of hear that there's a leak. You want to make sure that you have a good seal when you are using them. So when you do get these earbuds, make sure you change out the tips to something that does fit your ears a lot better and fully seals it, because if you don't have a full seal, the sound leaking is actually going to change a little bit of the tuning and how it sounds. Now, in terms of does it like fall out of my ears, as you can see here, it obviously does not fall out of my ears. It's actually quite a good fit, and the whole fitment is quite snug. Now, I got the DSP version, so that means it's going to be a USB-C plugin, which they actually gave me the extension cable, which is really nice because the distance from my computer to actually where I'm sitting is a little bit long, and the cable distance alone for this one, it's decent, but it's not super long. Like if I was to have it in my pocket and I was walking around, it's fine. But if I was to say my computer's under the desk, which it is, it's a little bit too far. So in terms of that distance wise, it's a little bit too short for that. And you would most likely need like an extension if you are someone who has your computer a little bit further away. Now, it is a 2-pin connector, so you can actually purchase a 2-pin connection and to be able to test it out for yourselves with, say, a 3.5 millimeter or even a 4.4, depending on what you're looking for. I'd say overall in terms of the sound profile, so it does have an opening, which means it has ventilation. The sound is supposed to kind of, I guess, have more of like a open back feel to it because of that specific ventilation that there is. It's not bad. I would still say that it still feels quite more stuffy when you are plugged in. In terms of the sound quality wise, it is bass boosted. So if you aren't a bass fan, definitely this isn't going to be something you enjoy as much. I think overall with the whole aesthetics of like the IEM gaming world, I think they are really focused their tuning towards that more bass end. And because of that, you'll really hear more of the lower end side than you will in terms of like the trebles and the mids being more clear. So how I would explain the sound profile when like listening to music is my Dita Project M's are more clear sounding and has like a little bit more of a brighter sound and tries to stay true to the actual mix. The Sennheisers is a little bit more fun, a little bit more energetic, and you'll hear still like a clear sound to it. These ones are going to feel comparatively, like if you listen to those and then you listen to this, it would sound a little bit more, in a way, muffled, like kind of like your ears are clogged, but you're listening a little bit. So it has a little bit of that effect comparatively, but that's because I personally prefer those earbuds. Some people are actually going to enjoy these ones on its own. The music listening quality wise, it's not bad. You can also, of course, change up the tuning if you wanted to. There's always EQs that you can do, and you can obviously boost this up a little bit more. But I have to say, they did a great job in terms of like the whole overall aspect of it. I'm quite impressed with this because when I thought about IEM gaming like earbuds, I thought it would gonna be a little bit more like budget and not really a great sound profile and just not really great for music. But they did a good job in terms of trying to balance both worlds, and it's really quite a nice IEM, especially when you consider like it's not going to be as expensive as some of the other stuff there. But we're going to have to test it in games, so let me show you guys what it's like when I wear it in game, and hopefully show you guys like what I can hear and how good is it in game. So let's go right into that. So we're going into a game, and obviously I'm going to skip over a lot of the portions of the game. We're going into the fighting portions because that's where mostly you're going to be listening for stuff or listening for people. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to test this out for how good is it for hearing footsteps and how good is it for other things like that. Now, I got into a fight and I was listening around to see like, am I really catching all the noises that is going on in the game? Because at one point in the game, when you have certain IEMs, because I had one that was really bass boosted, you only get a ton of gunshots, and that gunshots actually overpowers everything else, which is not good. And even here with like the guns shooting, I could still hear other sounds on top of it. Apex is notoriously known for having so many different sounds in there that it's really difficult to hear footsteps and really hard to actually get like a good idea of what's going on and, you know, where people are going to be located.
And when I was using the attack IEMs, it wasn't actually bad. I found that even though these are more bass boosted IEMs, the bass wasn't overpowering the gunshots. So like the gunshots wasn't overpowering other sounds, and I could still hear people. Now it wasn't the most perfect in terms of the direction of where the sound's coming from. That is something that I did notice with these IEMs. It was a bit difficult to tell like how far someone was unless they got really close. And then once they did get very close, I would actually be able to tell where they were located. This pair doesn't have the greatest soundstage. That is something I noticed, is that in terms of verticality, in terms of distance, it's a little bit difficult. But when it comes to actual, hearing them and the location wise around you when they're close, it is quite accurate, and you can actually hear a lot of footsteps and a lot of different sounds. Actually, it was really, really helpful to use in terms of the game. I really was trying my best to like really test out these earbuds. Definitely something that I wanted to make sure I was doing well with listening. Am I really catching everything? And in the middle of the game, it's kind of difficult to focus on two things at the same time. So obviously I was just trying to play the game, but I did really feel like it was helping me quite a lot. I used many different IEMs before, and I'm more of an IEM person than I am a headphone person. So it was nice to really test this. I use my own Dita Project M's usually for gaming. Sometimes I use the Sennheiser IE200s, but the Sennheiser IE200s are actually really bad for it. I found that I could rarely hear anything. But in terms of this pair, I actually was getting a lot more footstep sounds, and it really helped a lot in certain situations, like locating other teams, hearing the fights that are going on. It was difficult to exact pinpoint things, but other than those pinpointings, it was really good. I really enjoyed using it, and it does sound a little bit more on the muffled side, I would say. So you're not getting a very bright, clear sound from these IEMs. I know some IEMs you can really hear like every single sound where it gets very bright, and it kind of feels a little bit more forward is the way I would say it. This one sounds like a little bit backwards, with everything sounding a little bit towards the back and really focusing on just the certain aspects. So those are things to also keep in mind for yourselves. Now, going to the website, you can really see here, it's on sale for 60 USD. At that price, I think it's a little bit more worth it. When it comes to the actual retail price after the sale, honestly, I'm going to say it's a bit difficult to say it is worth it. It is getting a little bit more on the expensive side, where I think at that price range, you actually get a lot more other IEMs that are very, very competitive, and that will actually be a lot better for music. This is with a dynamic driver, so you get one dynamic driver. You do have a DSP cable, which you can get. I would highly recommend getting the DSP over the regular, and then get a regular cable for yourselves if you want one. Overall, like tuning wise, it is so bass boosted that like if you're listening to music, it's gonna be a little bit too much, and then the other sounds are a little bit died off a bit, which is not the funnest thing. Like when it comes to music, I really enjoy my music to be a little bit more forward and brighter, a little bit more warm. These ones do not really provide that, so just keep in mind for yourselves. They do have the software, so we'll take a look to see actually how it works. So this is their attack hub, where you're able to use it to, play around with the EQ and such with the IEMs, which is quite nice. This is actually a big bonus, I think, in terms of the product itself. The fact that if you have the DSP cable, you are able to make these different changes in the EQ, and you can really go in and do a lot of custom changes for these. So you actually have a lot to play around with, meaning that you can actually EQ these to make it sound a lot better, and it can actually save onto your DSP cable. So that's going to be another thing that you can actually keep with you, and that way you can actually keep it so that the music you like also works as well. So overall, the sale price with everything that you get with this product is quite nice, but the retail price I think is going to be difficult to digest.
So I hope you find this video helpful to see whether or not the Attack Horizon is an IEM for you, for gaming as well as listening to music. Overall, I think it's a decent grab. Like the cable quality and everything, they did a good job. They actually put a lot of work into it, and I think overall for the price, it feels a little bit more premium. But in terms of if you are a music lover, these probably aren't going to be your first picks. I would probably go with something different. Even like the Tangzhou has a more budget line, or even the Wayner, for example, is more of a budget line that actually sounds really nice, and it is cheaper. You have a lot more choices in those sections for music specifically. I did try the Wayners, and honestly, in terms of gaming performance wise, in terms of what I could hear, I think these are actually quite a bit better from what I could hear for footsteps. But again, everybody's ears is going to be a little bit different, and your preferences will be a little bit different. You can go check it out on the links in the description. I'll have it there for you guys. Of course, check out the other videos I got, and I'll have to catch you guys next time.